Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another production meeting. I know it's been a while, but we're all back. Um, Welcome, guys. How is everything going on?
Good. I can't remember the last movie, or last movie. I keep saying that. The last video we did. I probably could just go back through our list on YouTube and be like, "Oh yeah, I remember that." Um, but I haven't watched much since then.
Was it
Uh,
Furiosa?
did we? Oh yeah, we
Wow,
did do Furiosa. So that was what, 2 months ago? So
could be.
I I still haven't watched that much since then. I mean, most of what I've watched has been with you. What we watched. Quiet Place.
Yes.
We watched Deadpool Wolverine being our main thing for today.
Hmm.
Well, not we, but um like we both have, but at different times. Um yeah, I really haven't done much. I think I probably covered no, probably since the last time we did, I hadn't finished Final Fantasy, and I have. I did that like a month ago, so that's done. And all I've been doing really, other than work, is playing the sequel to A Plague Tale, which is A Plague Tale Requiem. So pretty boring on my side.
Oh, yeah, you can tell me about that.
Um, yeah, the first game's better. This one kind of feels like the same, and like the story's a little bit more not convoluted, but like it feels a little like kind of getting away from a simplicity because it's supposed to be from like the 1300s. So getting a little too complicated more so than we need. But it's still good. I'll probably try and breeze through this, and then what will take priority in this month, which comes out towards the later part of the month, being August, is Black Myth Wukong, and I'm very, 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 very excited about that. And that will take priority over everything in my backlog. So that is what's going to be happening. I don't know. There will be what Alien Romulus, and then I can't remember anything other like big at the end of the month that I'll have to like make time for.
You're not clamoring to go watch Harold and the Purple Crayon with Zachary Levi?
I
Yes.
mean, I'm talking about the end of the month, Ryan. I mean, this one's been circled on my calendar for months for just
Okay,
the
With
okay,
beginning.
good, good.
Yeah, I mean, Zachary
with the
Levi is
purple
the
crayon.
best. No, so that's gonna take priority. But other than those things, I haven't really done much. Like I said, we watched actually I watched Gen V. Liked it, solid. It was really bingeable in like a day. It wasn't very long at all. So yeah. You guys probably got more stuff, more exciting stuff than I. What do you guys what have you been all up to?
Go ahead, Mr. Ryan.
Um, well, I genuinely I blast through all the little movies that I watch. I cannot remember what I actually had talked about after Furiosa. So I'm just gonna skip to the ones that are like playing now. Um, Inside Out 2 was great. Quiet Place 3 was not. Despicable Me 4 is for kids. Um,
Got to remind yourself that.
no, I mean, okay, so a little tangent on those. That what a great start to a series that is just progressively getting more mind numbing. And I think I really enjoyed Rise of Gru for its weird kind of restyle, almost anthology feel to it, where it's just a series of strung together skits, but with a surprisingly fun side of the movie and a surprisingly decent side of the movie. But the money they made on that has tainted the the mold now, and so I guess that's just what we're gonna get. This
Mm.
does not have the fun or the quality. It was mind numbing. Um, see, I did have a couple that have already worked their way out of theaters, but one I think is definitely worth looking out for. It's probably streaming now. I do not keep track of what's streaming now. I should because we do these, but I don't because I'm not good at them. The movie Thelma with June Squibb, who is 94 years old. It's a actually Janet told me about this. I didn't know it existed because, like I said, I'm behind, just not keeping up as well as I used to. But it's this movie about this old lady, and she gets scammed out of a bunch of money. And then you may be saying, isn't that the plot of The Beekeeper?
I was literally
Don't
thinking
you dare, don't you dare mention The Beekeeper about this movie. This is like if The Beekeeper were good and Jason Statham was played by a 94-year-old. Not really. Don't have those expectations. It is a fun movie where she gets this other old guy that she knows, and the two of them set out to get the money back. And just a little bit about it. Like I thought it was very good. I thought it was very enjoyable. Most indie comedies have a tendency to be like front loaded. It's really funny. It's really unique. And there's a point where you're like, wow. And the second half, you're like, man, this has gotten so serious and emotional. This movie's funny throughout, and I was just so happy that it managed to stay a comedy. Um, very much enjoyed it. I double featured it with the Bollywood movie Kill. That's not a high recommendation for me unless you really, really, really just love violence. I genuinely, sometime after this movie, I asked two friends that I know from India, and I was like, "Hey, how could they make this?" And we had a whole discussion about how Bollywood's trying to like push their film ratings. So clearly, this was the direction they wanted to go, but makes John look really tame. Uh, I
Wow.
I I loved Longlegs less as it went, so I'm glad it's doing well. I switched very suddenly, sorry, but um, Talk of the Town, Longlegs for its budget being Neon's like highest grossing film ever. I got less and less interested the more the movie kind of revealed what it was, to the point where on the last note I felt kind of a dud. So I ended up with a 6. I feel like I would watch this again and appreciate it more the second time. But I've also heard a lot of people talk about the last act of that movie not being very strong. So, in case you guys were curious to see Longlegs, I think it's all right. But
I
first
had
off,
some interest, and I asked Matt because I couldn't remember if he said he really liked it or he thought it was really boring, and he went with
it's
the latter. And I said, "Oh, so you wouldn't recommend it?" And he goes, "Yeah, and I also know you probably wouldn't care for the whole like satanic like involvement with it." And I was just like, "Yeah, thank you. Then yeah, I'm probably gonna steer clear of it." So,
I
combine,
just
yeah, those two things, I
I'm
probably wouldn't. So.
I might disagree with Matt. Matt, if you can hear me, on both those points. I don't think it's boring. Part of that though is like somewhere in the back of my mind that film lover's still in there. Clint, this is for you. Talking to you. So I guess the whole thing was shot on film, and I'm sure the technical specs are somewhere in my mind. They've already been gone. Whatever. The little great people from Inside Out sucked it away. But like it's a gorgeous movie, and it's just filled with incredible tension. And so I was never bored with this movie. Uh, as for the tone of the movie, it's super dark. It's super uncomfortable. It does get very culty. That was
Yeah.
the wrong culty is the wrong word for it. Actually, I heard that, and it's dark. I think the problems with the movie are just the story goes in some odd directions that just I don't think are very good. And I don't want to say this without spoiling it because it's kind of a weird. I did this with Omen too. I was like, here's all these negatives, probably worth watching. Take this how you will, but I don't know. It's all right. I think it's tough. You know, when there's a movie and you get into it and you're halfway through it and you're like, oh, man, I know where this is going. This is good. And the movie chooses to go a different way. But you've already set your expectations based on the first half a certain way. The second watch fixes that. Anyway, um, I
I
started to find good.
just about so I did talk to Matt about the movie, and I don't know if he just kind of exaggerated it a little bit more on what he told me, but yeah, Alex, he told me kind of the same thing, that he like it was he said that the cinematography was very good and the tone of the movie was really good. And he kind of stopped and he was like, but it's very much Silence of the Lambs. It's just it's a like a noir kind of, what did he say? It was like a serial killer type of movie. And he's like, I would watch it, but he was like, don't expect more than that.
Yeah, I think there's when you're going into like a great serial killer movie, there's something that props the movie up each time. And Silence of the Lambs, I think is just incredibly sharp. Like I think the screenplay is just incredibly sharp and kind of some groundbreaking cinematography at the time where it was like, hey, we're gonna really establish what's going on with just framing and not exposit too much. But when we need to exposit, we're going to make it subtle and stuff like that. And then murder mysteries keep having to change because of it. And so Seven is like David Fincher's meticulous cinematography starts to play into it, and then Prisoners has to take over by having kind of an aura of moral gray to it, and
Yeah.
kind of visually and so I think the people who are writing Long Legs started with one thing and thought they needed to distinguish themselves more. And I think that's the thing that doesn't work, is in the story they're like, okay, here's how we're going to be different from those movies, and I'm like, just do what those movies are doing,
Right.
but in a different way. Don't change it. And I think if it actually had been just Silence of the Lambs, but this movie, I think I would have probably called it one of my favorite movies of the year. Not that I
Wow.
endorse just doing the same thing, but I think, I don't know, if it ain't broke, there's a reason
It-
Silence of the Lambs
Well,
works.
how does it rank up with? Because this is categorized as horror, yes.
Yeah, I would say by the end it definitely feels like horror. It's more on that line of like, when it's a horror and it's a thriller, and it's
Yeah.
not. You know what? Honestly, wherever you slot Silence of the Lambs in horror, this is one spot above it, but
Okay.
only because Nick Cage is creepier than Anthony Hopkins in this particular movie because of how the characters work, and Anthony Hopkins is kind of a supporting chaotic neutral character. So difference of nothing to Academy
Well,
Award
let's
winner
say
Anthony
for the sake
Hopkins.
of argument, it is, 100% horror. How does this rank among this year's lineup of other horror films? Like, I mean, because it's been pretty rough from
We
what I
have a
hear.
bad lineup of horror movies this
Yeah,
year. Have there been good? I think Late
this
Night
might
with the
be
Devil.
sounds like the default kind of front runner so far.
But
I
late
would
night?
say I would say Late Night's pretty good. The one that has stuck out to me the most is still First Omen, but I have it rated lower than Late Night. Um,
Mhm.
and this is up there. I think this is probably top three as far as the ones that have really stuck with me. I skipped over Quiet Place, so that says everything I think I need to say about that movie, because I forgot it existed until we were talking about horror movies this year. Um, yeah, I would say it's top three by default of the year. I'm I can't believe I'm holding out for Smile 2 to dethrone that. Um, but I'm
Keep
sure
talking
Alien
amongst
will.
yourselves. I gotta check on something real quick. I'll be right back. Sorry, I had to check
You're good.
Go ahead, Ryan.
But yeah, so trying to be spoiler free about it, I would say comparing it directly to Silence of the Lambs, it would be the equivalent of Clarice getting picked for talking to Hannibal, and that being a really interesting draw, which it is in that movie, and then talking with Hannibal, learning more. And by the time we learn why she's picked in Silence of the Lambs, which is this ploy from Jack to kind of use her to have a different type of, you know, um, agent kind of talking to Hannibal and loosen his guard a little bit. Longlegs would rather hold on to that answer and then just kind of muddle it back into some other answers that we didn't really have questions for in the first place.
Wow.
And just like, oh, but what if there was this big story connection here? And I'm like, no, that's not what makes Silence of the Lambs work. And again, I'm not saying do the same thing. I think it's just it gets very uninteresting from a story standpoint because of how good the setup is. No.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I
But
don't
if you go
know.
see a horror movie right now, see this over Quiet Place. That movie is boring.
Yes, I can agree with that. I think
Yes.
we all can.
Good
Cool.
moments, but
Um,
um,
yeah, I was gonna say, you probably have more. You got to keep going.
two more. I was trying to catch up on some Star Wars because of another show that we might mention in a minute, and I was like, oh, I'll toss on Tales of the Empire. I'm behind, and I watched half of it, and I was like, this isn't very good.
Uh,
Uh, I I don't know. I think it's maybe my waning interest in Star Wars, or maybe my waning investment in Star Wars. I think it's more the focus of having 6 episodes and just having 3 invested about one character and 3 more invested on a different character. I don't think it's a very good structure. I wasn't invested. Um, I don't know. I've read a lot of the Tales of books from classic Star Wars, And season 1 of Tales of the Jedi felt like those, and this does not feel like those. This feels like kind of reading a Wikipedia page and being like, oh, that happened to them. Oh, that happened to them. Oh, that happened to them. I don't care because that character's dead in modern canon anyway. So I don't care what happened to them 20 years before their 2 scenes in that one show that I've forgotten about.
Right.
So, um, that said, I really liked Twisters.
Wow, really?
I did. So, I like Twister. I really like Twister. I've seen it, I don't know, a dozen times. I really enjoy it. I think it's a really good movie. The smaller stakes the disaster movie has, the better it is. And it's not a big stakes movie. I really enjoy Twister. Um, I did not have any expectations for Twisters. And halfway into it, I was like, man, this just isn't very fun. And by the end, I was like, that was a good thing. It does sacrifice that fun aesthetic down to not even referencing Mark Mancini's score. Um, and by the end, I'm like, well, it's a really good movie instead of a really fun movie. And I think it was a notch that I wouldn't even call it a full point better than Twister. Because I have them both as sevens. I think I really enjoyed both of them. But I think it is slightly better than Twister.
Hmm.
If you don't, maybe if you don't like, if you don't want to go to a movie for like emotional connection, then I could see Twister being the better movie. But I think for Twisters, it was like, hey, we do need to have some emotional stakes for our protagonist. Because I think one of the things in Twister that's a bummer is that like Joe has this emotional connection to what she's after in Twister. We never really touch on it very much or enough to make it dramatic. It's like the movie doesn't want to stop having fun, even when it has serious sequences. And Twisters just not shy away from that. It's like, hey, here's a character with trauma about tornadoes dealing with tornadoes for 2 hours. So it has some fun moments, but I thought it was a good movie. So I recommend that one. And other than House of the Dragon, which wraps up next week, so I feel like I'm just gonna hold off until next week. Um, Acolyte is all else. The only other thing I've got.
Yeah. Cool. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So since we last talked, Alex and I did see Quiet Place Day One. I thought it was okay. Didn't really see the point.
Hmm.
Sorry for spoilers, but all she wants is some pizza. And
Which
I
is
was
the
like,
highlight of that movie, I think.
right. And I was like, cool. So what? Let's see. Watch Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. And if you are not a fan of the Beverly Hills Cop movies, don't watch this. Because this is literally like, hey, remember these movies? They were cool in 1984. And we're going to try to play the same themes and the same music, even right down to the 80s tones and the composition of the music. And Eddie Murphy is going to try to do his best to be Axel Foley. And that's about it.
Let's say you're a fan of the first one, never saw the second one, never saw the third one, and forgot the first one. Is it worth rewatching the first one and then watching this one and skipping 2 and 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry, I'm trying to remember plot points from the third one. And all
I don't think
four of these
anybody cares
movies.
about plot points from the third one.
No. I think the only thing that you need to know is that I guess the girl he left with at the third one, he ends up marrying, and his kid is one of the main protagonists in this one. Other than that, yeah, it just kind of references back to the first one a couple times. Quiet Place, and then we've seen Maxine.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And we were just talking about the rankings of horror movies this year. This is probably at the bottom somewhere, kind of middling. As
Because you
I
guys
wrote
didn't see Strangers, which I will probably mention again at the end of the year.
Well, I personally didn't
Probably.
watch it because of you. I was like, you gave such a glowing review that I needed to stay away.
Yes. Technically, this movie was pretty cool to watch. Very much 80s grain in the film, weird 80s kills. But as far as like the plot, it was so bizarre. The Night Stalker like aspect of the movie was just kind of put in there, I guess, as like an 80s reference. and kind of like blue dot on where we are in this
Yeah.
in time, I guess. That was pretty much it. Bad Boys Ride or Die, the Bad Boys movie.
Wait, did we not talk about Bad Boys already?
No, no, we have
I haven't
not.
watched it.
Thoroughly enjoyed it as much as the other ones. That's
Yeah.
my review. I
What
sat
exactly does
down.
that mean?
That you sit down and you eat popcorn and you laugh the whole time. You won't remember it tomorrow, but if you put it on again, you'll probably sit down and get some more popcorn and laugh the whole time.
You know
Because
what
it's not
though?
2.5 hours like Michael Bay's second one.
Yeah. You know what, Alex? I actually think this one was probably better than the last one. But
I
the unfortunately sad thing about, so I'm gonna go on a little rant about this movie just for like 2 seconds. So unfortunately for this movie, you have to see the last one to understand this one a little bit. So I forgot what had happened in the last one, and I was like, oh yeah, that's what happened. So unlike the first two, because the first two have no correlation with each other whatsoever, except for obviously Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. But in this one, this is actually a direct sequel. So it's not like a James Bond thing.
Mhm.
So you have to kind of watch the last one to get this one. However, I think that this one was better than the last one, strictly for the fact that like there was more to do in this one. And there was like this not there is, but there's not this like weird family drama from like Mike's like Will Smith's past, which kind of convoluted this plot line of the last one. So they kind of got rid of all of that and it was like, hey, we're gonna strictly stick to this, like a Bad Boys movie. The other thing that made me sad, really sad for this movie and for DC fans, is because this one was better than the last one, the two directors that did one actually directed the Batgirl movie, which makes me sad because if this one was good or like if Batgirl was like close to as good as this one, we got screwed royally as DC fans for a Batgirl movie because this was actually pretty good. Like it's a Bad Boys movie, like Ryan said, it's a popcorn flick. You kind of laugh at the few jokes. The best part actually comes in the middle of the movie and it has nothing to do with either two of the main characters. And I was like, where's this guy's movie? Like that's what I want. So like that makes me sad as a Batgirl and a DC fan because if like DC actually released Batgirl and it was even came close to this, I think the movie would have been successful.
Well, funny enough, I have seen the because this one's called Ride or Die, and then what the last
Right.
one's called like Bad Boys Forever or something like Forever. Because
No, it's like
isn't
Bad
that
Boys for Life. Maybe you're
because
right.
isn't it the fourth movie in the series? Or is that just
No,
like
this one is.
oh well then that's dumb. Anyway, regardless of title, I've seen the previous one before this. I couldn't tell you anything that happened because I don't remember. I just remember seeing it with Ashley. And so I mean I guess I technically could watch this one, but I'm like, nah, I'm good. I mean, that's cool. Be a popcorn flick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just like I'm good.
Yeah, I am not by any means like being like you have to see this. Like if you like if it's like HBO night or whatever, like Hulu night, and you guys can't find anything to watch, then yeah. But with
No,
as
that's
much
fair.
stuff, if as much stuff is not there as on streaming, I'm sure you probably find something better to watch. I watched the speaking of, I watched The Watchers. That was a movie. It exists.
Next week,
I
you have to, or next time we do this, you have to see Trap and compare Shyamalan versus Shyamalan Jr.'s movies this year.
Oh yeah.
so here's the thing, like I with The Watchers, like I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, like an Irish folklore and like sorry to spoil this.
Go ahead. I
Fairies.
mean,
Yeah,
everybody says it's boring, so I probably won't watch.
it's pretty boring until about the last 40 minutes, and then it's like, huh, okay, this is kind of cool. But like they use this like Irish folklore and stuff like that, and I was like, okay, cool. I will say this about Shyamalan Jr. She did get some tips from her dad about like tone and like settings and like ambiance of the movie. Like 'cause she does that really well. Like they both do. And like this one is very dark in the Irish countryside and like family traumas and all this other stuff. So like they both do that really well. And I was like, that was done really well. But yeah, the movie's pretty boring until like the last 45 minutes of the movie. Watched Hitman on Netflix. Not as funny as it like advertises, but it's pretty good. It was just kind of a weird Richard Linklater movie. Invincible season 2, finished that. Literally forgot that it was out. Watched the last couple episodes that they released for this year. Wasn't as good as the first season. It was all right. Did Boys season 4 in about 2 days, Alex. So yeah, if you guys binge that, it should go pretty quickly. I thought Gen V was like the last season of Gen V was still better than this season, but this season was pretty good. And My Adventures with Superman season 2, which I still think is pretty good, decent. Oh, and then The Alkalite, if you'd like to talk about that for a minute, Ryan. As a whole, I enjoyed the series. There are parts of it where I thought that I was like, is this a sci-fi movie of the week, or is this Star Wars? So there are times that the visual effects are a little wonky, especially for Disney and Star Wars. I'm only grading this as like a whole, but I did give it like a 7 because I think that it started off a little weird, but where it ended up was really cool. And like I said in my review, it kind of uses that and now that line from Return of the Jedi where it's like this is a story told from a certain point of view. And I think it's kind of cool how the creators showed that other point of view of the Force, reflected back onto the Jedi and showing that the Jedi, even in this time, are not infallible. So I did like that, and I do like where they're setting that stuff up as. And I did like that they did not have to include like every big name in Star Wars. I think that did the show a great service, except for like that last 30 seconds of the last episode. But what are you gonna do?
Shout out people.
What did you think, Ryan?
I was like avidly defending it every week, and I'm sure that's like I was going to make topical jokes about lawyers and famous people, and then I decided to not make those jokes. Point being, it got really hard to defend, I think, a few times. Because it was like the conversation early on was like, it's stupid. And I was like, it's fine. And then people were like, it's really cool. And I was like, I told you so. And then people were like, the writing's bad. And I was like, yeah. Now I will say this. This is both the nicest and meanest thing I can say about it. And I mean this with all my heart as someone who grew up right alongside those prequels. This feels like a prequel. Like, and I mean, like I said, that's the best and worst thing I could say about it. Like, people are like, "Oh, the writing's terrible," and I'm like, "No, that's Lucas's writing right there." And people are like, "Oh, it's stupid," and I was like, "It's like poetry; it rhymes." Famously, a George Lucas quote, and I'm like, it even takes inspiration from a different era of Asian cinema, but like, is very prequely. It makes similar calls. It has similar cool characters with mullets. Uh, it Soul, by the way, honestly, probably one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. Um,
Yeah.
I don't love there's a particular point in this movie where or this show where I was like, do I like this or do I not really like this? And I think I've rested at a 6. But it's a high 6 because I want it to be above Boba Fett and Kenobi and Mandalorian season 3. And I think I don't know. Ahsoka's a weird, it's tough to compare fan service and new stuff.
Right.
Point being, there's a moment in I think I'm gonna say the second to last episode where we're learning things, and we're like, oh, we're gonna learn the whole truth, and I was like, what? This is what we're going with? Like, the whole thing is this is it felt really, really hollow in that moment. For goodness gracious. Um, Disney's calling. Um, it felt, but I think that episode felt super, super hollow. And I can see the position they were put in where they were like, how do we deal with, like, oh, do we want to make the Jedi have made bad calls? Do we want to make them bad people? Is that to the opposite direction of where we need to be? How do we keep stuff a secret so that we're not retconning the originals? I think they just wrote themselves into a really weird corner, and they picked the safest way out possible. And I think that was the worst thing that show could have done. Because I think I enjoyed a lot of it, to be honest, and it's got some really, really good action sequences.
Yeah,
Like really good. Like I have to go back and think how was the last time I saw action sequences that were gorgeous and really exciting. So I think we
yeah.
get one or the other sometimes with sabers anyway. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, it's probably like way back in Last Jedi. Then I was like, oh, can't talk about Last Jedi. Everyone will lose their minds. Not you guys, just the internet. Anyway, it's a 6 from me. And the thing that the other thing that pushed it is I keep trying to get through the score. It's so boring. The music is really boring. I
Well,
like Michael Abels,
yeah,
but
and I think that right there is just like they kind of reused like a lot of stuff. Like they
yeah,
reused Kylo Ren's theme and they reused like
I
some
thought it was
Vader.
gonna matter because what's her face said, "Oh, that's on purpose," and I was like, "Ooh." By the end, I was like, "What was the purpose?"
Right? It was like, okay. And like the breathing with Vader, and I was like, is this okay? Well, I seen where that went, and I was
Yeah,
like, okay, I
a bit of an
guess.
irony that I spotted. I have to call out ridiculous people. So like people were making fun of the helmet, and then the helmet got put up on Star Wars' official merch website or whatever, and it was like $120, and it sold out in like an hour. And I was like, oh yeah, what a terrible design. You paid $120 for it, internet, all of you.
All
Now
of
I
you.
can't own it, and I like the helmet. I was not going to pay that for the helmet, but anyway,
Anyway,
it was all right. It's nowhere near as bad as anybody says it is,
yeah,
unless you hate the prequels.
yeah.
Is it a thing, a helmet that kind of looks like it's got teeth?
Yeah,
Yes, that's why they call him Darth Teeth now, which
Oh,
is
this is
weird.
all new. Like I've never seen this before. This looks stupid.
Yeah,
watch it in
like the
action.
Oh.
yeah, yeah. It's
You have to watch him headbutt a lightsaber with it to make the lightsaber shut off. It's pretty cool when you're watching it.
Hmm. Okay.
yeah,
Biggest mistake that show makes is it is what 8 episodes.
yes,
It should have been 4 episodes paired with each other and just twice as long.
yeah.
Because the way they cut the episodes in half was frustrating. So I'm done talking about Acolyte, but I promise I don't have a high horse later on with the movie we're probably going to talk about. So Star Wars is my hill to die on.
Mine too. Okay, so that's what we watched. Let's get through some news of the week because there was an event this past weekend along with our movie that released. Just gonna kind of rapid fire through some of this stuff. Squid Game. Did you guys watch the teaser that Andrew just dropped? It is very much a teaser about the season coming out in December, and then I guess the final season. So there's going to be 2 more seasons, and the third is going to be an actual final season that's coming out in 2025. Cool. I literally forgot what Squid Game was until that teaser just dropped. So these seasons need to come a little bit closer together and not like 4 years apart. Official images of the Skeleton Crew were released today. With that is the Jude Law Star Wars series that is going to be released on Disney Plus on December 3rd. Didn't really expect you guys to see these, but it's supposed to be like an ET early 80s Spielberg Star Wars show that's supposed to be fun and whatever. And I don't think that Ryan really likes
That
that.
doesn't sound good. That was the worst pitch I've ever heard for Star Wars property.
Well, for us Gen Xers, it does sound like the Goonies meets Star Wars meets E.T. and the Last Starfighter, so
Hmm.
you guys can,
There was a
Go
good
away.
movie or two in there.
yeah. Alex doesn't think so.
Wait, whoa. Alex, you don't like any of those movies?
What
There's
did he
not
rip off? I can't even remember.
there's not one
Alex doesn't
movie
like
in
the
there you
Goonies.
like?
Oh
Oh, that's
yeah,
Alex doesn't like the Goonies.
I don't.
dumb ending. Dumb
I
ending.
Alex, have you seen E.T. or the Last Starfighter?
Starfighter, yes. ET, no. I just never. No, I just never. I know
This
Ryan's
is
like
this right here.
mentioning.
This right here is why we need to go back to Alex's classic corners.
Yeah.
Alex,
Anyway,
wait. No, we can't just anyway this. Alex, how on your list of priorities? I know because Matt, but pretending Matt doesn't exist. How did you ever watch The Last Starfighter before ET?
Because Ken at work kept
Ken,
raving
that's who
about
it
it.
was.
He would talk about it all the time. It's like one of his favorite movies. Even he might have said it was his favorite movie of all time. And so I remember getting it for him, because it was like $5 on Amazon for a DVD. And I gave it to him, and he kept asking me like every once in a while. He goes, "Have you watched this yet? Have you watched this yet?" I said, "No, Ken." Well, and then he gave it right back to me as soon as I gave it to him for Christmas. And I said, "Okay." And then I watched it and I was like, "This is really dated. This is just okay." And I
yes.
told him that, and he goes, "Yeah, that's valid. It doesn't hold up very well." But back when it came out, it was blah 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 blah. So he was the one pushing me to watch it, and nobody's ever pushed me to watch ET because I don't care. I just don't care. I'm
Hey,
sorry.
Alex, watch ET.
You
No, I'm
should
not giving
care.
it peer pressure anymore. I've grown up now.
Well, if not to like be this guy, but if we do give you the homework, kind of have to do the homework.
No.
So,
Um,
it'll probably be one of the last movies that we ask you to do, though. Just to be fair.
Because we'll kill you if you don't watch it. Is that what you're implying?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. I'm just kidding.
I'm not saying it's an
and then like
incredible movie. Just you should
No,
have
no, no.
watched
it moves
it.
his head, and like Ashley's tied up. She wasn't gone this entire week. She was just right there. We're gonna kill her if you don't watch ET. Like, what?
Oh man,
No.
watch it for the score.
The
John
only thing
Williams.
I know about ET is that the fact of Reese's Pieces existing because of it. It's the only fact I know. And because apparently they wanted M&Ms. I guess Spielberg wanted like M&Ms to be like his candy, ET's candy, and they were like, no. And
Oh
he was
yeah,
like,
that's right.
okay. And then I guess Reese's came up and was like, you know what, we'll make kind of a similar like shaped candy, we'll just kind of redesign ours and blah blah blah. If you want. And he's like, sure. And then, and then Reese's Pieces actually didn't even, I guess, in theory exist, but prior to that. So that's what made it popular, and that's why it exists today. So I do know that.
And E.T. is a Jedi, so just want to let you know.
Yeah.
It's upsetting because I didn't know that fact, but I've seen the darn movie. I just
Yeah.
thought it was product placement. I knew it was product placement. Let's move on.
Well,
Now we can move on. I'm done talking
it
about
was
ET.
product placement before the product even existed, more or less. So I always think that's crazy.
Yes. Moving on. There was an event this weekend called San Diego Comic-Con. There was a few releases this week. So I'm gonna start with DC because they did go first this week. So DC Studios' Creature Commandos trailer dropped. Did any of you watch this one?
No, and I've never heard of that. Not that I
Ooh.
remember.
Okay, so this is going to be the first official launch of DC Studios, the James Gunn, Peter Safran-led DC Studios, and it is a animated show about. It is basically Suicide Squad with monsters. So it has Frankenstein, the Bride, like a couple others, Weasel, I believe it is, and Rick Flag Sr. So Rick Flag's dad from the Suicide Squad's father, if that makes sense. So this is the first official like launch of DC Studios. So this is going to go into whatever they're doing. It looks good. You guys check it out. I don't know what its rating is going to be. It being James Gunn, I'm gonna guess that it's probably gonna push that hard, like that hard PG-13
PG
into that
15.
M. Yeah. Um, Also, they dropped the Penguin trailer for the September 19th release of the HBO series. Did you guys watch this one? Wow, you guys.
I couldn't actually get to the first trailer. I was like, oh, look, this looks like a mobster movie. And then I got halfway
It
through and I
very
was like,
much.
In my defense, I haven't watched really any trailer since the very first one that came out because I kept thinking, man, it really looks like Colin Farrell now. It didn't used to look like Colin Farrell. Now it really looks like Colin Farrell. That's what, a budget will do.
Yes. So, this is very much Scarface meets Batman. So, I'm excited for it. I don't care what you jokers say. Next up is the Marvel
pun
stuff.
intended.
Yes. Next up is the Marvel stuff. So Captain America Brave New World trailer dropped. Did you guys watch the Captain America trailer?
I
Yes.
basically have had to be forced to watch it, but yeah, I did.
Okay, so this is very much Winter Soldier-esque. Giancarlo Esposito's secret villain has been revealed. He's the head of the Serpent Society, which is another like secret society within the Marvel cinematic or the Marvel universe. He's playing Sidewinder, I believe. Yeah, the only thing I'm excited for. This is like Captain America going back to the like espionage-esque Winter Soldier. So I think Winter Soldier, I will die on this hill. I think Winter Soldier is probably one of, if not the best Marvel movie that they made. Just for that.
I'll die with you. It's my favorite.
Sweet. All right. At least we'll be together. There's that. Also the next two Avengers movies. So they got rid of Kang.
Dang.
Not sure if you guys knew that was a secret or not, but they got rid of Kang. So Kang is no longer the main villain of this phase of the MCU. It is going to be Doctor Doom. And the Avengers is going to be Doomsday, which comes out in 2026. And Avengers Secret Wars is still going to be released in 2027. Who are you asking is going to be playing Doctor Doom?
Who?
Be Robert Downey Jr.
But he's Iron Man.
What?
Yeah, mind blown. I have many thoughts about this, and some are positive because it's Robert Downey Jr. and he's coming back to the MCU. Cool. My negative thoughts is like you could have literally gotten everybody else.
Yeah.
Anybody else. Literally anybody else. And I think this is where Marvel is now going to slip into that DC type of mindset where it's like, oh crap, our movies are failing. Panic button. This is our panic button. Because Mad Mikkelsen's probably would have been an amazing Doctor Doom.
Oh, yeah, I agree. That's
I think there are like many other villain-esque people out there that they could have picked to play Doctor Doom. And so they're going to go with the Doctor Doom from a different reality that is Tony Stark, which is in line with comic books, but
there are probably more actors suited than what I'm thinking of. I don't know why my brain's like, oh, you know what? Why not explore Alan Richardson, from Reacher? I don't know why. That seems like a cool idea, give him a shot. He's big, he seems
Sure.
like the kind. But yeah.
Anybody else?
Killian
Matt
Murphy.
Smith. Killian
Matt
Murphy.
Smith.
Ooh, yeah, I wasn't that a rumor for a long time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Matt's his brother, even though he's Thrawn. He could have been Doctor Doom. Kind of scary Danish guy.
Yeah, I'm seeing where like I've seen like 2 or 3 videos where they explain like how this can make sense, where given what we have up until now as far as the MCU, and like, well, there's a variant of Tony Stark where he actually does become the blah blah blah, and well, yeah, that's fine and all, but they actually, the man hasn't even said a word about it. He just is like, I don't even have to speak. I'm Robert Downey Jr. And so we don't even know if it's actually Tony Stark or if he's literally just like another person, which is, I mean, it just, I think, I don't know if I'd necessarily go, it's a panic button, but it's pretty much a panic button because it's like, oh, you have to get this guy who was super pivotal in the very first movie and like in all of obviously the first phases of the MCU, and you have to get him in order to get people to come and watch these movies. I'm like, how about creating something that actually like either one makes sense and two like isn't just a cash grab more or less. It's like, come on. So I don't know. I'm on the fence more or less. I'm always of the variety of, wait until I see, kind of deal. But like if I had to lean one way, I'm like, this is dumb. I just am like, I don't see the point. Like you're saying, Clint, anybody else. I mean, there's a ton more actors that you could have tried that probably could have gotten you just as much like noteworthiness. Like you could have picked a lot of different people and go, oh man, he's gonna be Doctor Doom. That's pretty cool. I'm like, why,
Right.
why?
I mean, I will say that the character does make sense if you're going to get rid of Kang because, Doctor Doom is a very pivotal character in the Marvel universe.
Hmm.
But like I said, I feel like you could have probably gotten somebody a little bit more villainous
Yeah.
play this character.
Hmm.
I don't know. Any thoughts, Ryan?
I think it would have been really funny if that reveal were Jonathan Majors. Just kidding.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
we're gonna get rid of Kang, but keep the actor around. No.
That's the whole point, right? What are you doing to us?
Yeah. No, my thing is, and it was funny. We literally just watched Oppenheimer again last week, and I was like, man, Robert Downey Jr. is a good actor. And then the news came out, and I was like, man, he's probably gonna kill it. That's the saving grace for me. Is like, I think he's gonna be great. Um, I just don't think it needs to happen. I don't know. It just feels it's hard to separate it. Where it's like this feels like Clint. You said it feels desperate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also, it's funny you say desperate. I not that he is. I mean, he's made a killing. He's got tons of money. A lot of people do. I don't know their lifestyle, so who knows this and that. But is it a little bit of a desperate move for Robert himself? Because I'm trying to think about what's he done since.
I think
He
it's
just won an
more of a
Oscar.
yeah. He got an Oscar, and I think it's
Oh,
more of
that's
like a
right.
he can do
He
whatever he
did.
wants
I
now.
forgot about that. I
Yeah.
completely that like completely escaped my brain.
Well,
Okay.
Alex, and he's got to kill time for that Doolittle 2 script to hit his desk.
No, I didn't see that. I'm glad you said that. That's what kept entering my brain. I'm like, oh, he's just reeling from, Doolittle doing so bad. And then I don't know why this is way past it, like when he was still Iron Man, but something called The Judge with Robert Duvall or something like that. And I'm like, no, that was a long time ago. We're not talking about that movie. But
That
okay,
movie's
yeah, he
old.
did just, in what is it? Oppenheimer. I completely forgot about that. So I don't know. Then maybe it's not. I just yeah. I don't get it's not a publicity stunt, but it feels like that. It kind of just feels like that. Ooh.
Yeah.
Hopefully
So
I'm wrong. Hopefully we're all wrong, and he, like Ryan said, hopefully he kills it. It's the best movie ever.
sure.
Maybe.
Which I'm willing to bet that he'll be in Fantastic Four next year. I'm sure it's like some sort of
Which I'm on the fence about that too. I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know how to feel about the movie. I don't know.
Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel. Like, I like the cast, but I'm just nervous. I think it's just because I'm nervous. Like, this is a big, chunk of Marvel stuff, and just want to
Oh,
handle it carefully. So
I'm 100% and 1,000% on board with you because as soon as they start introducing those X-Men characters, I'm gonna be like, you better do this correctly,
and we'll
or
get into
else.
that when we get into our review here. I've
Yes.
got plenty of thoughts on that.
So moving on into our review. So our review this week is going to be Deadpool and Wolverine, which I don't really know if this really kind of needs any type of introduction or synopsis recap. Deadpool is somehow going to be, hey, there's Wolverine. Somehow Deadpool is going to be Marvel Jesus, I guess. Which a lot of people are saying that it's blasphemous. Which I'm not saying that it's probably wrong, but a
It's
movie.
not the most blasphemous thing to come out of this past weekend. So
Yeah, right.
Probably. Anyway,
Olympics.
yeah.
We don't talk about real things here. Move on.
Talk
Moving on.
about films.
Yeah. So anyway, so Deadpool and Wolverine. Uh since I'm talking, I guess I'm gonna go first. So I gave this a solid 7. Strictly on the fact that it wasn't a bad movie. It's a Deadpool movie. Um we'll talk about cameos and like spoilery stuff later, after we give like our little initial thoughts and stuff. The only reason why I kind of notched this down is one, it is a Deadpool movie. It is very much a Deadpool movie. Um, and I think that Sean Levy and Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman to some extent, um, really was like, Disney, you sure you want to give us an R? And they were like, yes, I think we're pretty sure. And they're like, are you sure? And they were like, yes. And so they pushed that like really hard. Like this is an R movie, and like you came to see a Deadpool rated R movie, and they wanted to make sure that you knew that. Not saying that that was a bad thing, but it's just like it's at some points it was like, okay, I think we can move on from this. Secondly, the reason why I kind of notched it down a little bit more is because I'm not really sure what this has to do with anything except for the TVA. I don't like. I know that there was conflicting reports from Sean Levy and Kevin Feige stating that Sean Levy said that this had nothing to like this is not in any type of phase. This is in a phase movie. Feige said that this was a phase 5 movie. I don't really know what this is gonna have to do with anything in the MCU besides the TVA. Because now they're introducing stuff that I was like really kind of confused on like what they were introducing anyway. And just a minor spoiler, what do they call him? A anchor persona or anchor person?
Anchor being.
Anchor being to the timeline. Where was that in Loki 1? I was like, a what? And so now there's gonna be like I've seen it already where like who is the anchor being for 616? So it's like, okay, now we got to figure that out. I just like I said, I walked out of this movie. I was like, yeah, this is decent. It was cool to see Jackman as Wolverine again, a different Wolverine, kind of the same Wolverine, but a little bit different. Love the suit. The only thing that I did not like about the suit is when he put the mask on. I was like, that doesn't match.
Did you
This doesn't match
did
to
you
this.
do the Hannibal impression when you said love the suit on purpose, or is it just subconscious because we were talking about Silence of the Lambs earlier? The
Oh,
subconscious.
inflection was there.
love the suit.
Yeah. That's probably on purpose. That's probably subconscious.
Jeez,
But
sorry.
anyway. But the cowl didn't match the like the suit. And I was like, we were probably good with this off. So it looked funky to me. I mean, it was cool.
I was between both. I was like, I felt that, but at times I was like, I think it's because I wanted it to be cool, so I just decided it was cool.
Which is fair. But other than that, like I mean, like we'll get into the cameos, which are kind of cool. I did like one more just because it like they did the character right a little bit more than the others ones to have ever done. Yeah, it's movie. And the villain, like I don't think that like Emma Corrin, like her villain wasn't bad, but like she didn't really have much to do. So
Yeah, she wasn't like she wasn't the main source of conflict. Like she was, but she wasn't. It's just like,
right.
yeah. So, Ryan, I feel like going last. So if you want to share, Or if you'd like to go last, you'd
All
like.
right. So the critics don't like it as much, but the audiences seem to love it. Now that you might think that's going to reflect Clint as the audience and me as the critic, since I don't have the comic book experience. So my glorious in-depth review, it's fine. For real. That's like what I've got. I think part of it was expectations going into the weekend and coming out of the weekend. I saw this. I it's a movie, but sometimes the night you see it on, the weekend you see it on, then the night you see it on, the situation you see it in, it plays into it. This is a big crowd movie, and so I saw this on a Sunday night, and I thought that was safe. We had family in town for the weekend, so I was like, we'll just see it as soon as everybody leaves. It'll still be a big crowd. It was a big crowd, and there was a moment that happened, and we'll talk about that later, where I was like, and I looked around, and nobody in the theater freaking laughed at all. And I was like, crap, I should have seen this on Thursday. And it was the most disappointing moment in the movie for me because I had a great time. And then that moment was crushed by the indifference of the 200 people in the room with me. I don't know what the theater capacity there was, but I don't know. I think Clint, you touched on it a little bit where it was like two different directors saying two different things about their two different creatives saying two different things about the movie, And I mean, I think as a highlight, like Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman and their marketing tour this last week has been pretty. It's done a lot for me, actually. I think going into this and being like, you can see how much these two want to be doing this and how they're really good. I think there's a lot to say as far as their characters go. Not as much as I would have liked. It's like I think the first Deadpool is really good because it doesn't really take itself seriously ever, and it has. And not to say it's like a complete joke. It's not like I don't know Deadpool 2, where it doesn't have as many grounded moments or something like this. But I think this neither was as good of a drama as it could have been, as far as like getting its themes and characters, told the way they wanted to, and also neither or not as good of a crowd pleasing comedy. Because I laughed a couple times. Stuff was fine. I think it was just coming out of the weekend. I even heard like critics who don't like the MCU being like, "Man, if you thought this was gonna have big cameos, you're so not ready." And I was like, "Okay, here we go. Donald Trump's gonna be in it, something like that."
Yeah.
And I was like, by the end, I was like, I mean, I guess like I could have called everybody in that, like, so maybe for what with one or two exceptions, but and the movie shouldn't be about cameos, but the word of mouth seemed to make it about cameos. And it shouldn't be just about how important it is to the MCU, but the word of mouth was about how important it was to the MCU. And I think it's not the movie's fault that I was disappointed with it. But by the end, I was watching it and I was like, wow, I can feel comic book fans loving this stuff. I am not that person. I've not seen the panels that it feels like are beat for beat straight out of team ups between Deadpool and Wolverine or stuff like that. And it was just kind of the novelty was lost on me, but there wasn't enough in the movie to make it up for me. Um, if it weren't for the fight in the car in the middle of the movie, I'd probably have this as a 5. I love that sequence, so I'd bump it up to a 6. I
Mhm.
don't know why I love that sequence. Maybe it was the music, maybe it was just the kind of the energy it started with and the lack of energy. I'm not trying to spoil the sequence. They fight like twice, 3 times in the movie. So I feel like I'm not,
Yeah.
giving too much away. But Deadpool and Wolverine fight was a really good fight in this movie, and I was like, this is the best. Unfortunately, it means it peaked in the middle for me, but it was fine. I've never been a huge Deadpool fan, so I didn't expect to love this. I would say though, if you haven't watched it, just don't have your expectations as high as I did.
Yeah.
There's a lesson.
Yeah.
Um, I think I'm pretty similar to Ryan. I at first want to just say, yeah, it's fine. I'm like teetering. Clint's like solid 7. I'm more of like putty that's been sitting out kind of 7. Like probably a little malleable if you give it a little strength. But I probably will stick with the 7. I don't know. Maybe if I saw it again, I probably would at least cut like a half point, maybe a whole point, and kind of go back down where Ryan is, because I just was like, okay, this movie's fine. It's like not fantastic, and I mean, it doesn't suck. I mean, it's clearly a Deadpool movie, so the F bombs fly, and um, but I think Clint and I talked about it. He had watched it, and I hadn't yet, and I agree with this, and I don't know, I don't recall you saying it now, Clint, though. Um, Actually, maybe you did early on. Is it doesn't we don't know how this is really gonna fit in the MCU. It's like where's this like necessarily taking us? I think they wanted to like because there's no way this movie wasn't going to make money. Even if it kind of just bombed, it probably at the very least, would have like made 100 million at the very least, like over its budget. Like, I mean, and then it would have been like, okay, fine. But
I
I
think
think
it's
they
done
wanted to,
that already.
yeah. So I think they wanted to like do their thing, do craziness. There's a ton of fan service in here, and that's where Ryan came in on like it's not for him because he doesn't have the college comic book lore, like knowledge of say one of like Clint, someone who's more up to speed on that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of like pushing for those kind of fans. And Ryan, you also talked about the cameos where I didn't hear that directly that the cameos were like a driving force of this movie, but like they were a big like influence in your excitement for, leading up to it. So, I mean, I heard them, but I too think the same thing. Like I probably could have predicted a handful. I probably would have overshot. In fact, there were a couple in there that I thought, oh, there's definitely going to be this moment, but and there was kind of the moment, but not with the actor who I thought. So,
I know
um,
exactly what moment you're talking about too. And
and
yeah,
yeah, and we'll probably have to save it, if we even choose to do spoilers, since this is still such a fresh movie. But we'll do spoilers and hand waving if we do that. But I was like, this, yeah, and I completely agree with Ryan that the mid movie fight scene in the car is absolutely like awesome. Like it's like I know it's in a car, but I don't know how to describe it other than it's choreographed really well for being in a car. I think
Yeah,
yeah,
that's actually
yeah.
makes it more impressive
yeah,
because how many moves can you do in a car? Punch, punch.
yeah,
The first Deadpool comes to mind now
Yeah,
that I'm thinking about it. So maybe
yeah,
yeah.
there's
actually,
some. It's
right.
like poetry. It rhymes.
So
I
that
can't
is
stop
the
making
best
fun of that.
sequence. I do. There's not there's a kind of indirect source of conflict with the villain who like it's supposed to be this one person, but it's kind of really this other person, but it's kind of you don't exactly get like who's supposed to be the bad person, and I think I just it falls flat for me personally. I don't like it. I wish they would have done something a little bit different. In fact, who they picked and who this person is in relation to somebody else, in my opinion, and this is with very limited knowledge of certain areas of the superhero world, I didn't think it makes sense for who the actress was or actor, uh, and given who they were supposed to be related to. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Um, I also thought that oh man, it's an R-rated movie. It's an R-rated MCU movie. All right, let's just say F F F F F F. How many times can we say F face all the time? I was just like, you're just kind of cramming it in. You're shoehorning it in every once in a while, and I'm just like, I mean, I get it. You can do it, and I'm like, I'm not gonna sit here and go, oh my gosh, you're doing this too much. But at the same time, I'm like, you're doing it a little too much. Like it's not organic. Um, the jokes are Ryan, I actually wanted to ask you this. When you watched it, did you say that the audience didn't really laugh at any of the jokes, or they just didn't laugh at the one that you really thought was like, Oh man, that's a hard hitting joke.
I apparently saw this movie with a theater full of 22-year-old boys
Yeah.
who thought that middle of the road immature stuff was the funny part.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it. Everything that referenced this movie has a lot of love for Fox. I think I
Yeah.
could say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything that referenced anything that was older than 10 years, nobody but me got.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's some good jokes in this movie that are just completely fallen flat because all of these people were just not watching the jokes that they're making. Um, they were okay. It wasn't a great crowd. I
Right.
saw
And
Deadpool 2 in a good crowd for comparison. I didn't see the first one in theaters, but like it matters.
Mm.
given my work schedule, and then I had to go out of town for a ball game. I never found myself with like time to see it until 2 days ago, actually. And so it was kind of a light crowd. It was noon on Monday, and so it was like probably 20, 30 people at max. And so I mean, you hear, oh, ha ha ha, ha ha ha. But like the lack of an audience, I knew was gonna make this a little less like impactful. So I'm gonna stick with a 7. My gut just says 7. Um, but I mean, I definitely could be talked down somewhere. Um, it's fun. It's we were just talking about Bad Boys being, a popcorn movie. This kind of just feels like that more or less to me. It just is like, oh, nah, that's funny. Oh, um, nah, there's not really like any strong feelings one way or the other. I don't feel like, oh man, that really sucks. That's a stupid thing. Or I don't feel like, oh man, that part was great. This is all like, yeah, it was all fine. It was all fine. So I'll say 7 for right now. Um, Now do we want to go into spoilers?
Yeah, let's go into some spoilers.
Anybody who's listening, watching, we are about to talk spoilers for Deadpool. Please pause and
Um,
look away if you haven't watched it yet.
Wait, we all have to drop a fake spoiler. No, because then
Yeah, yeah.
what
I
I'll
know.
do is I'll pitch something that I wish would have been in the movie.
yeah.
Um,
So
Go
the
ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
cameos,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
the cameos are what did it for me, and that's why I solidified a 7. And I'm gonna say that what actually solidified is the comic book references. And so, like you both said, this is very much like there is that section of the movie. There's that very like beginning of the movie where he's looking for a different Wolverine. That if you are a comic book fan, that was gold, like right in there. So when they reference when he fights Hulk, that is one of the first appearances of Wolverine.
Yes,
So
I caught that.
that was dope. I was like, that is cool. To see, like if they actually see them fight, that would have been even better. But to reference him fighting Hulk was actually pretty cool. Him on the X Cross is actually a comic book cover that they did in like the late 80s, early 90s. So that was kind of cool to see. Him as with one hand, that's an Age of Apocalypse, where they did this Divergent, where Charles Xavier is dead and Apocalypse kind of takes over like the world, and he loses his hand, and it's a whole thing. That was cool to see. I didn't really like the hair. That was like a call. That was like a callback to like one of the artists that does his hair. Like really, like wow.
Mhm.
So when they referenced Patch, that was actually really cool. I kind of thought that that would have been a different actor. Um, the life size version, life size version of Wolverine. Yes, in the comic books, Wolverine is actually 5'3", so that was really funny. And to see Cavill as Wolverine, that was dope. That was definitely a like a comic book thing. And I think that they were trying to get like poke fun at DC.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Um, Talking about the cameos, uh, yes, Chris Evans. When they started to reference Chris Evans, I was like, "That's Cap." But why would Cap be out here in the void? And then he took his that shaw off or whatever, and I was like, "That's why." Because he was Johnny Storm, and I was like, "That's funny." Um, how they got Wesley Snipes in there, I will never know.
Well,
I was like,
before you
"What?"
continue, I watched a little thing, and I mean, I'm sure there's way more to it,
Yo, yeah, I'm
But
sure.
but I watched a little snippet of a video where Wesley Snipes said, "Yeah, Ryan called me up and said, hey, we're thinking of doing this in the movie. What do you think?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know. I mean, if you can make it make sense, I'm all for it. I'm very much in." And he's like, "Yeah, well, he made it make sense and everything. So I was on board."
There
So
were and I suspected this. I'm sure somewhere in our videos I've mentioned this, and I think Clint, you probably have too, that there were fake spoilers that were dropped. And Kevin Feige confirmed it last week, and he was like, "Yeah, we leaked a couple things, or allowed a couple things to be leaked to cover for other things." So, uh, this was I think one of them, because going into this weekend, somebody was like, "Hey, did you see this article about how Ryan Reynolds and Mahershala Ali we're gonna work together to bring Blade?" And I was like, "Crap, that means he's gonna be in this movie." And then so they were doing like the lineup, and I was like, "Yeah, okay." Oh, not Mahershala Ali. Like
Yeah,
that was good.
yeah. Um, I liked Channing Tatum as Gambit because they actually did his character right, and I was like, but like the jokes about his accent were I think probably the best jokes in the movie. I was like, yeah, I can feel that.
yeah,
That was the hardest I laughed, and that was the thing nobody else in the theater laughed at.
Right.
Because how many people follow the production that we've followed, where it's like, "Hey guys, Channing Tatum's still holding on as Gambit. Whenever they make that movie, oh, they don't have a screenplay anymore. Oh, they don't have a director anymore. Oh, no one's moving forward with this project."
well, there's a two-sided coin to that. I like that, but I also dislike that only because it reminds me of they did the same thing in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness with the whole
Yeah,
Krasinski thing. And that was just kind of a, hey, we hear you guys, whoosh, we just wanted to, say we want you to know that we could do it, but we're not
I
going to.
think I think this was it's funny because I'm comparing an 8 or 6 to an 8, but saying the 6 is better than the 8 in this instance. I think this was better though,
Yes.
because while I like the cameos in Doctor Strange that everybody has just completely turned around on in the last couple of years, I've noticed, um, which is fine. Movies age, I guess, very quickly sometimes with popular opinion. Um, I loved this was one of the things I really enjoyed about the subtlety of the movie. I loved that the void was like the Marvel dumping ground of like
Right.
Fox and
Right.
Yeah.
everything that doesn't exist anymore. And it was so wonderfully meta, and how they, except for the 20th Century Fox logo on the ground, it was never like stated obviously that that's what this was.
Right.
Uh, and then I was like, he was like, "Yeah, I feel like," oh, he said it in his heavy accent, but he was like, "Sometimes I feel like I was born here." And I was like, "You
That's funny.
were. You
Yeah.
never left."
Yeah.
Which character though?
Gambit.
Gambit.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I was like, that's where it fit really well. Because I was like, I could see, Alex, I could see it where it's like, oh yeah, somebody, we wanted this person to be this character. And I think John Krasinski's a fun little cameo for sure. But I think in this it was like Shane Tatum was signed on to play this part. And it
Yeah.
never happened because no good reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
People were excited about it, people
Okay.
were not excited about it, and then
They
like
they had a whole cast.
mm,
And I think Gavin was it
Kevin Hood,
Gavin
right?
Gavin Hood was
Yeah,
signed on, and then whoever the director was is Gavin Hood the director of The Accountant?
good question.
Whoever the director of The Accountant was supposed to direct the movie. And then well at first it was supposed to be Rupert, I can't remember his last name, but he was the director of Rise.
Gavin O'Connor is the
Gavin
accountant.
O'Connor. That's what. So at first, Gambit was supposed to be directed by Rupert Evans or Rupert something. He was the director of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, so the very first new Planet of the Apes movies. He was supposed to direct it, and then for some reason he left. I can't remember. And then they gave it to The Accountant because in 2016, The Accountant was like the big action movie that nobody thought that was going to be doing good, and they were like, "Cool, you can do action. Here you go." And so then it just kind of died. And I think it was because of the purchase of 20th Century Fox. I also like the jokes that Jennifer Gardner had about Daredevil, which I thought was hilarious.
It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah. No, go ahead,
I don't
guys.
think I was gonna say I don't think those were written with the Ben Affleck drama going on with them right now. But
Right.
it's just kind of ironic that that's happening also right now.
Yeah. It was funny.
I it's like the two-sided coin again, but with all the Fox like superheroes. So yeah, bring him, Wesley Snipes in there, bring in um Jennifer Garner in there. It's all cool and everything. I mean, I guess I can say it's a good thing now, the way that it turned out, because their characters basically, they gave themselves up for this noble reason to, help the main cause of the movie. And I was like, okay, so because at first I was like, please don't tell me these are going to be, now that you have these properties under your belt, that you're going to incorporate these. These are 20 to 25-year-old like properties, that like these specific actors. I'm like, they're too old. They can't, like, they're too old to do it like now. They're still here, but like if you're going to incorporate them for years to come, nah, it's just not going to work. So I mean,
Till
it was
they're
very,
90.
yeah. So it was very, tongue in cheek kind of deal for me in that regard. So I was like, I hope they don't do that, and then they didn't do it. So I was like, that's good. Um, I I also thought Hugh Jackman. I don't know. Maybe I'm just because I don't watch a lot of X-Men movies. I mean, I've seen Logan and I've seen one other X-Men movie. I think probably just the very first one. So, I'm not. I thought it felt very like, all right, Hugh Jackman, just stand over there and like say some Wolverine stuff, like, just. I don't know. I felt like he was too, like, he wasn't given enough to do. That sounds weird, even though he's like in the entire movie. I don't know. I just felt like his story should have been a little bit more complex than it already was. I don't know. Maybe I was asking a little too much. It sounds like it now that I say it. I
No,
also, yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, but I don't I agree with you in a weird way because watching all the huge X-Men fan, obviously. But yeah, so watching all the X-Men movies and going up into Logan, I knew that like Logan uh this is gonna be hard to say, because Dark Knight is like my number two movie of all time. But I do think that Logan is probably one of the best or the best comic book movie
yeah,
ever. Um, include like even over Endgame. As much as I loved Endgame and the MCU movies leading up to Endgame, I think that Logan pulled off some very heavy emotional beats for a character that's not supposed to die. And so I understand that this movie was treading very lightly on what Logan did and did not want to sully any type of thing. Because I mean, like I said, and I'll repeat it, like it's like Logan is one of the best comic book movies, if not the best comic book movie ever made.
yeah,
And so to kind of take what he did in that movie and then put him in this, yeah, I think that I don't think that it sullies or like diminishes anything that Logan had done or the emotional impact that Logan has. But I do think that taking him from there to here is a huge step down.
yeah.
um,
Right, and I think that's the exact same mentality I have, because I too agree. Logan is a phenomenal movie. Um, and like you said, the emotional takes on this character, and just kind of the ending, in my opinion, is just absolutely what makes Logan Logan. I mean, it's great through all throughout, but like even more so at the end. And it's just, yeah, that's kind of where I'm going. It's just like, it just feels not hollow, just like this is this is gourmet, and we're now going for like not Cheetos, but like fast food or something like that. It just feels it felt wrong, in my opinion, more or less. I mean, some parts are great. It just was like we had such a high point here. You just like, I don't know. Yeah.
I've got you. I've got you. So it's like not working.
No, you're
Yeah,
good.
yeah, you could.
Okay, okay. You pointed to your okay. So it's like you go out to eat, right? And you're having like a several course meal, and you finish your meal, and you're like, "That's freaking phenomenal!" Like you've had your meal, you've had your dessert, and then you look over, and Alex here is like, "Hey, I didn't finish mine," and you're like, "Well, I'm not gonna finish it for you," and he's like, "Well, I'll just take it. I'll get it to go." And then later you're like, "Man, I'm hungry. Like I want lunch. I'll reheat Alex's leftovers." I don't know why we're living together in this situation, but it's like, and then you reheat it, and you're like, "Man, that is not as good the second time."
Yeah.
But I had that perfect meal. It's the same food, same meal,
Huh.
different situation,
Right.
out of order, that kind of thing.
I don't
I
know,
like the
man.
suit though.
I I think it's like if you took like super great macaroni and cheese and then
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, man, it was great. And then you do
Oh yeah.
take it and you morph it a little bit. You add some stuff, you put some weird ketchup that you've never tried before on there. And you're like, I sullied what I really had going for me. So
Yeah. Speaking
I
my language.
don't know. I know. Just gotta speak it in food. That's how we relate. So one cameo I was expecting that we didn't end up getting, funny enough. Internet can lead you to all kinds of weird ways, but I thought Daniel Radcliffe was going to be here in some Wolverine variant too. Because I mean, I don't think I saw him. I mean, I think we would have said it by now if we had, but I was just like, because I heard that rumor going around for a while, and then
I heard Carl Urban. I think those were to keep it secret that it was Henry Cavill.
that too. I heard that too, and yeah, I was just surprised at how few cameos because of, I mean, I guess that's what all of that mislead was for. So yeah, I mean, I'm not. My biggest gripe is with this movie is the source of conflict, and I don't like the villain. And well, now that we circle back to that, because I was saying I was going to talk about it. She's supposed to be Charles Xavier's sister or twin sister, even, yes.
When. Mhm.
But okay, maybe I'm just making it too simple. My brain was like, she's way too young. Unless they just don't age in the void. I mean, if that's the case, then I guess it makes sense. But I still was like, you're way too young, and it doesn't. I don't know. You're not convincing me that you're a relative, like that you're. I don't know.
So Cassandra Nova is actually a variant of a variant, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So she is from a timeline that where she is a twin where Charles Xavier in the womb doesn't destroy her as like an embryo in the womb.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Try it. So there's many different versions of Charles Xavier, and then there is one timeline where they are twins, and she does because in utero every other time she is taken over or dies or something. So, but there is one timeline where she does go to full term, and she does. The funny thing is like when you say that how young she looks in the comics, she's kind of a little bit more frail.
Yeah.
Where she kind of looks almost Benjamin Button like. I'm gonna be completely honest.
Right. If that were
Uh,
if she looked like that, that would make more sense to me. I don't. I
yeah,
think I'm making it too simple of like their age. Like if he's this age, she should be this age.
yeah.
I don't know
The
if that's too simple.
I think
ironically, I did like her as the villain though. I don't think that she did a bad job. I think
Mhm.
she was kind of like her as an actress and her taking the role of what she was given and how much screen time she has. I think that she is a really cool villain, and I
Mhm.
hope that they kind of well, really can't now, but like I wish that they could have expanded on her because she would have been a cool X-Men villain.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get what you're saying, where like she's not, she kind of is there.
Right. I mean, I don't think she did a bad job. I just am like, it's like if I were directing, it's kind of like, I know what a movie to, randomly pick out to reference here. But remember when we all watched that wonderful movie called Army of the Dead?
I thought
And
you were gonna say
we're all
something
talking
else. And
about the directorial style that Zack Snyder had. And like, I remember the opening scene because it takes place in Las Vegas. And, he's playing the Elvis Viva Las Vegas. Viva. And, a couple of other guys, I think Matt probably was on when we reviewed that. And like, see, I was like, I could pick that apart. But see, if I were a director, I would probably do something like that. I would do something real cheesy like that. And so that's kind of the same thing here. I mean, I can't necessarily pick it apart because that's kind of what I would do. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It just
Uh,
started entering my brain. I was like, what? What a random movie to reference when we're talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. So, um, yeah, I think the nitty gritty or nitpicky thing is how does this exactly tie into the MCU, or how does it exactly move us forward? I don't know if it does.
yeah, I don't either. Like, is he the anchor being now because he's there?
That's the biggest question. I know you talked about it before. So that's what we're sitting here wondering. In what number is the universe? Like the one that we know that is one.
Deadpool is in 1,155. What do they say? 10,155? Something like that.
No,
His is
but
55, I know that.
the one where like Captain America, Iron Man,
Oh, the
or
main timeline?
yeah, yeah.
The main timeline is 616.
Okay. So but that's who we're wondering is the anchor being in that universe, yes?
Yes.
So yeah, that's what I kept thinking too. I was like, my brain wanted to say, "Oh, it's Iron Man," because
Stark, yeah.
yeah, I was like, because he died. But I was like, it probably would have gone that way. They're like, "Oh, we can't do that yet." It's if my brain and they kept refer and I actually just forgot about it until now. This is probably I mean, even more like sneak peek into the future than like the end credit scene, because the end credit scene wasn't anything like that. It was just a joke. Um, was the whole, hey, why is Thor holding me? Why is he crying? Or why am I holding Thor? I can't remember which way it was. But that's probably like, oh, hey, yeah, don't pay attention to that. We just want people to see and like talk about it and see if they like that or see if they, think anything of that. So
That
maybe
wasn't, that's what's funny though, is like when you say that, like that wasn't Hemsworth. It looked more like Damon.
yeah, you're right. You're right. That's what I thought too. I was like, I couldn't tell if I was just like thinking it or if they were doing it real quick. But I was like, that doesn't really look like him. I mean, it could kind of look like him if I'm like, but I thought the same
Yeah,
thing.
it looked more like Matt Damon.
I'm gonna Google it while we're still talking
I
because
think that's what Ryan's doing.
And
oh
well, nobody's credited in that role on IMDb, which makes me think that it's archive footage. Archive. It's not even technically archive footage. I think it was probably repurposed from Dark World so that they didn't have to pay Chris Hemsworth. And I agree that it kind of looks a little off, but I think it was probably a mental lens of like, that's not what Chris Hemsworth looks like right now. I think that's what Chris Hemsworth looked like 11 years ago in that movie that I don't like and barely remember. In that one scene where Loki dies for the fourth time.
Right.
That's my guess. Because I know they do that scene, but it's like the fake version of it. I think if it had been actually Hemsworth for the role or Matt Damon, they would have been it would have been more prevalent. It would have been like a something they'd gone back to or something they would show more front and center. Since it was such a
Yeah.
blinker you miss it thing, I think it was like our brain lagging in the processing time of being like, who is that? Is that really? Wait, oh, it's gone. Like,
Yeah. That's fair.
I could be wrong. I'd love to be wrong, but I'm not going to go see it again to find out.
I don't know. It's a
I
movie.
think, yeah, I think for me, I was enjoying it, and then I was like, oh, the universe is going to end. Great. I love stakes like that. Nothing says this is going to have really grounded character development like we're going to devolve the whole universe into silly string again, as if we didn't just see that in Loki season 2. It's fine. It's whatever. I didn't care for the fight with all the Deadpools either. I thought it was okay.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I kept thinking. I was like, I know there was the one, where what do they call him? Nice pool, where he's all
Yeah.
like handsome and everything. I'm like, okay, like he doesn't regenerate and everything. I'm like, okay, whatever. But then the rest of them, I was like, they're just slicing each other up. I'm like, don't they know they're just gonna stand right back up? And then sure enough, a minute later, they stand right back up. And I was like, well, this kind of felt like a waste of what, 2 minutes, three
Yeah.
minutes.
Gosh. Speaking, Nice Pool was a funny joke, and then he came back, and he was still kind of funny, and then he got shot a bunch, and then I was like, come on, can we just end this joke? And then he takes him out, and I was like, bet his head's gonna explode. And like 2 whole minutes later, it was like, and I was like, yeah, because I guess I'm 8 years old too.
I didn't like how he's like, oh yeah, I can fourth wall break too. The proposal. And I was like, I legitimately went and go, ha. And nobody else laughed at that.
I don't know, it was good. I forgot about that joke until now. Alex,
Yeah.
6.1 from me.
um, yeah, I just, yeah. It's got a bunch of ups, it's got a bunch of downs. It's like, will I put this in my collection? I think so, but not until it's like $10, maybe. I say $10 is fair, I think. Black Friday sale, right in my collection.
It was funny for me though, being the comic book nerd of this group. I think what disappointed me the most about this movie is not specifically this movie, but Deadpool as a character entering the MCU. Um, Deadpool is supposed to be an anti-hero, and he was in the first one because he was kind of forced into this like situation where the bad guy was a little bit worse than he is. And then the second movie comes around and he wants to form a team to feel like a part of a team, but he's still kind of a jerk in like a little bit of that movie. And now this one he's like, my whole world's crumbling, now I need to save it. And I'm like, why are we slowly moving away from this anti-hero, sorry for my language, kind of asshole like Deadpool that we started off with? And then now we're here.
Well, I'll tell you why. It's a different studio owns the character now, and
That's
there's
fair.
no other reason.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. I think I would have enjoyed seeing that kind of. I think maybe that's one of the reasons. And I haven't thought about it too much because I don't follow the comics. I just have never. So maybe that's one of the reasons I do think the first movie is really good, is because you've got more of an attachment to this character who you shouldn't have this attachment to, but it
Yeah.
works in that. And it came out in like peak anti-hero season, Um, and by 2, I think part of it is that era of like I'm just gonna call it the Breaking Bad era had ended.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, okay, people aren't settling for dislike for unlikable characters. We've got to update them a little bit, and I think it worked okay in 2. But I agree with you. I think I would be ashamed to kind of just make him a hero who swears a lot and is violent.
Yeah.
There are more of those. Wolverine's one of them. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes. That's my takes on Deadpool and Wolverine. You guys got anything else?
No, I think we
Ah,
covered a full spectrum. I feel like that was pretty efficient, for lack of a better
Sweet.
word.
So coming up, uh, I am not watching Harold in his purple crayon or whatever.
What blasphemy!
yeah, Clay, we can't stand for this. We all have to go see this 33% on Rotten Tomatoes, 46 on
Wow.
Metascore. That was higher than I expected it to be, actually.
Wow, that is pretty high.
We could plan for like Alien in 2 weeks.
That's what I was thinking, is that we take another, let's not make this like another month. I would really like to come together for Alien Romulus, because that looks pretty cool. So I say we take this week off if we want to get together and like talk about random news, maybe, because I know there's not much news right now because San Diego Comic-Con was literally 3 days ago. And D23 comes out in 8 days, so there's probably some stuff that we can talk about, but we can take a break until Alien Romulus, or if Alex is forced to watch E.T.
Yeah, right. No, the only other movie, what? Trap. You and I eventually will be catching that, Clint.
Oh, that's right.
I think I'm gonna see it too. But
I mean, we
whenever.
can just make that part of the next one too. I mean, unless you guys want to, talk about that, we can just leave that as a mini.
Without Matt, there's no way we could fill a whole one of these with an M. Night movie. Old
Matt
was
is
a one and
stuff of
done kind
legends
of.
now.
Shamalama. Yeah, I mean, if we really have a lot to say about Trap, we can make a movie, but let's aim for Alien Romulus / Trapped. Cool.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, then, thank you guys for watching or listening. Please give us a like or a review on YouTube. But until next time, deuces.
Wolverine.